The sky above Kravia 4 burned like molten copper, the twin suns dipping low behind jagged mountain spires that cast elongated shadows across the crimson plains. In the heart of this desolate world, a clearing ringed by towering blackwood trees served as the stage for a ritual older than memory. At its center stood the obsidian altar, a monolith hewn from volcanic glass, its surface slick with a thin film of sacrificial ichor. High Priestess Inara knelt before the altar, her wrists and ankles ensnared by living vines that pulsed with an eerie phosphorescence. Each vine bore tiny, thorn-like protrusions that bit into her skin, sending tremors of pain through her limbs whenever she dared to struggle. She forced herself to inhale the damp, iron-scented air and focus on the steady rhythm of the chanting cultists. Around her, a ring of acolytes draped in crimson robes swayed in unison, their hoods thrown back to reveal pale, gaunt faces lit by the flicker of obsidian-tipped torches. They intoned the ancient words of the Shrieking Ones in a language of broken vowels and hissing consonants. "O hungry lords of the underbrush, we yield our lifeblood to your glory. By bone and bile, let the world remember your hunger." As their voices rose, the ground itself seemed to tremble. Inara's heartbeat thundered in her ears. She had heard stories of the Shrieking Ones, those monstrous denizens of the planets, fungus-choked jungles, but she had never thought to face them so directly. She closed her eyes and braced herself against the pain of her bindings, the chill of the obsidian pressing at her back. A sudden gust of wind swept through the clearing, snuffing torches and silencing the chant in an instant. Inara dared to open her eyes and saw the trees shudder, their branches writhing as though alive. From the shadows beyond the blackwood ring, a low, resonant growl echoed. It was a sound that spoke of ancient predation, feral, intelligent, and infinitely hungry. She exhaled, disbelief and terror warring within her. They were close now. The first of the Shrieking Ones emerged, its armored carapace a mottled tapestry of fungi and chitin. 8 spindly legs carried its rotten bulk forward, each step squelching softly in the mossy ground. Its eyes, dozens of them, burned with a hungry light as it fixed its gaze upon Inara. The cultists raised their voices once more, a bloodthirsty chorus of worship and dread. Inara's breath caught. She strained at the vines, but they only tightened in response, their luminescent thorns digging deeper. She felt the awful inevitability of her fate wash over her, a cold dread settling in the pit of her stomach. Just as the creature lowered its maw, dripping with iridescent saliva that sizzled upon contact with the air, Inara steadied herself. Somewhere beyond the fear and pain, a spark of defiance flared within her heart. Whatever horrors the Shrieking Ones had in store, she resolved she would not go quietly into the night. But before she could gather more resolve, a crack like thunder split the silence, a sound that did not belong to this world. The creature recoiled, its kaleidoscopic eyes widening in shock. And for a heartbeat the clearing lay suspended between. A tremor ran through the clearing as the Shrieking Ones paused at the edge of the blackwood ring, their dozen-jointed limbs poised like a web of snapping twigs. The sudden crack, sharp and resonant, had pierced the heavy air, silencing the cultists' chants and halting the beasts in mid-stride. Flickering torchlight revealed hard, chitinous plates bristling with fungal growths, each creature's carapace a grotesque tapestry of moldy green and sickly yellow. Inara dared not inhale. The acrid stench of decay clawed at her throat. The cultists exchanged fearful glances. Some raised their torches higher, as though height could ward off the horrors beyond. Others knelt in frantic prayer, murmuring pleas to gods they barely understood. The high priest's voice trembled as he strained to resume the incantation, but his words came out fractured, desperate. Every inch the Shrieking Ones held their ground, their multifaceted eyes tracking the slight movement of Inara's chest, beneath the pulsing vines. Pain screamed through Inara's limbs as the living bonds shifted. Each vine quivered in response to the tremor beneath the beast's feet, its thorny tendrils sinking deeper into her skin. She bit back a sob, forcing her gaze toward the largest of the creatures, their ostensible leader, whose spines arched like a twisted crown. Its jaws opened in a hideous grin, rows of serrated teeth snapping shut with a wet click that echoed like bone against bone. Silence thickened once more, broken only by the distant rustle of leaves and the low, meditative hum of fungal spores drifting across the clearing. In that suspended moment, Inara felt time stretch and twist. The shrieking ones advanced again, slow but inexorable, their hunger unmistakable as they circled the altar. Inara closed her eyes, bracing for the first strike. Then came the second. Crack, closer, sharper, resonating through the beast's armored shells, and with it, the promise of salvation or sudden, wrathful violence. The air hung heavy with dread as the second crack reverberated through the clearing, silencing the last frantic whispers of the cultists. Even the shrieking ones paused, those grotesque terrors whose hunger had driven generations to despair, now, frozen as if bound by the very sound itself. Beneath her pain-soaked flesh, Inara felt the vines slacken for the first time, and she dared a glance toward the tree line. There, framed by the bioluminescent glow of phosphorescent moss, a solitary figure emerged. He moved with uncanny calm, each step measured and certain on the uneven ground. Midnight black armor, etched with the insignia of the United Earth Expeditionary Corps, swallowed the torchlight save for slender strips of cobalt blue that pulsed along his limbs. In his gloved hands he wielded a short staff, its surface smooth, almost alive with energy, humming softly as if in tune with his heartbeat. The visor of his helmet gleamed like polished obsidian, mapping the world before him with silent precision. The cultists recoiled, torches trembling in their fists. Some raised sharpened spears while others fell to their knees, mouths moving in frantic prayer to gods both old and new. The high priest's once measured chant had broken into ragged slogans, desperate to reclaim control of their unraveling ritual. Yet the newcomer paid them no heed. His focus never wavered from the largest of the shrieking ones, its crown of fungal spines bristling like the horns of a demonic king. A single step brought him within striking distance of the beast's forelegs. The creature snarled, a mixture of rage and fear rippling through its chitinous form. With a lean forward, the sentinel anchored his staff into the soft earth, and in one fluid motion, he swept it upward. A surge of cobalt light raced along the shaft and burst at its tip, sending a shockwave that knocked the lesser shrieking ones off balance. They howled in terror, stumbling back into the undergrowth. In the aftermath of the blast, the clearing fell into an almost reverent hush. Even the wind held its breath. Inara's heart pounded as she watched the sentinel stand unmoving, staff at the ready, visor fixed unwaveringly on the fallen creatures. For the first time since her bindings had tightened, hope flickered within her. This silent guardian, this human stranger, had arrived not as an executioner, but as deliverance incarnate. And as the cultists scrambled to flee, Inara realized that whatever came next, the balance of power on Kravia 4 had shifted. A tense hush fell over the clearing as the silence after the cobalt blast hummed in everyone's ears. Even the staccato chirp of distant fungal spores seemed to pause in deference. The silent sentinel, Lieutenant Kale Trenox, stepped forward with the poise of a predator closing on its prey. The massive leader of the shrieking ones reared back, its crown of bioluminescent spines flaring in alarm. Kyle planted his feet firmly in the mossy earth and swung the staff upward in a brutal arc. Energy crackled along its shaft, converging, at the tip in a focused beam of electric blue. The beam lanced into the creature's under carapace, and with a sound like ancient bone shattering, the spine crown snapped off at its base. Fungal fragments and viscous crimson ichor sprayed into the air as the leader pitched forward. The creature's wail was an ungodly howl that shook the torches in trembling hands. Its many legs lost coordination, flailing wildly before giving out entirely. It collapsed in a convulsing heap, the severed spines clattering like macabre hailstones around its bulk. The surviving shrieking ones recoiled, their ritualistic confidence obliterated by the sudden savage display of power. Cultists stumbled backward, robes trailing and faces ashen. Some dropped their torches, extinguishing the last points of light, and plunging half the clearing into gloom. Inara's heart thundered as Kale advanced, staff now humming with residual energy. He knelt beside her, one gauntleted hand brushing away the phosphorescent vines that had bound her so cruelly. With clinical precision, Kale activated a blade of focused plasma and sliced through the vines. They wilted and stilled, limp as broken threads. Inara staggered upright, the rush of freedom sending shards of pain through her wrists and ankles. She blinked at her rescuer, helmet visor reflecting the gore-streaked ground. Behind them, the surviving creatures scuttled into the darkness, their resonant clicks fading with each retreating step. A single mournful shudder ran through the largest among them, the wounded leader, before it lay utterly still. The forest reclaimed its hush, broken only by the soft panting of the human and the labored breaths of the freed priestess. Kale rose, retracting his plasma blade with a soft hiss. He offered Inara his armored hand, steady and sure. Under the copper sky, she placed her trembling palm against his. In that moment, the power of the cult of the Shrieking Ones lay shattered at their feet, and Cravia 4 had witnessed the breaking point of its own ancient. Kyle trenched aside the last coil of glowing vine, his gauntleted fingers steady as he worked. Inara flexed her wrists, feeling the thorn's impressions bleed into her skin, like a reminder of how close death had been. Around them, the clearing lay strewn with broken spines and discarded robes. The cultists' bodies had already been claimed by the jungle's undergrowth. Only the two of them remained in the hush. She rose unsteadily. "Why? Why save me?" she rasped, voice raw. Kyle holstered his plasma blade and tapped his visor. A gentle whir issued from the suit's life support module. "I'm Lieutenant Kale Trenox of the United Earth Expeditionary Corps," he said, voice filtered but calm. "Cravia 4 is under quarantine, classified off-limits after reconnaissance teams reported the Shrieking One's alarming intelligence and aggression. Your cult defied those orders. My mission was to eliminate the threat and extract any survivors." Inara's breath caught. The vines had whispered of sacrifice, but never of outside interference. "My people. We're starving." The seas turned. Toxic crops failed. The only answer we saw was to appease the old lords. Her chest tightened with guilt and sorrow. "I volunteered to end our suffering." Kale studied her with quiet intensity. He activated a small hollow projector on his wrist, and a flickering map of Cravia 4 appeared between them. Red zones marked, fungal blooms blue for freshwater reserves, green for viable terrain. "Your world has potential," he said. "But these rites only worsen the imbalance. The spores you revere are strangling the land." She traced the map's contours with a trembling fingertip. "We don't know any other way." He tapped a waypoint. "There's a research outpost 50 clicks east. Hydroponic biodomes, terraforming prototypes. With your guidance, we can seed the highlands and restore rainfall cycles. In return, we'll dismantle the cult's network, prevent any further sacrifices." Inara closed her eyes against tears. A fragile hope bloomed in her chest. "If you Help us rebuild. I'll show you every hidden spring, every sacred grove. We'll work together. Kale nodded, retracting the map. Then let's move. The rest of your people must never be enslaved by fear again. Under the copper sky they set off toward the jungle's edge. Inara limped at first, but strength returned with each step. Kyle walked beside her, silent sentinel and unlikely savior, their destinies now intertwined. Behind them the clearing grew still, its horrors witnessed, its balance forever shifted by a single act of defiance. The first light of dawn crested over the obsidian peaks, bleeding pale gold into the mist-shrouded valleys. Inara and Kale trudged through the damp undergrowth, the air cool against their sweat-slicked skin. Behind them, the jungle's chorus. Birdsong, insect calls, the distant drip of moisture, felt transformed, as though life itself had breathed easier since the clearing's carnage. Inara led the way, her steps surer now that her spirit was unbound. With each footfall she pointed out hidden, springs glinting beneath ferns and narrow ravines where silver trout darted among slick stones. Kale listened, absorbing every detail into his helmet's mapping system. He fell into a steady stride beside her, silent but watchful, as though attuned to the planet's heartbeat. After an hour's march, the treetops parted to reveal the gleaming hull of the EEC dropship, half buried in flowering vines. Its hatch yawned open, the ramp descending with a soft hiss. Scientists in green biosuits clustered around portable analyzers and seed pods, startled but relieved to see Kale emerge with a native by his side instead of as a victim. Dr. Sona Vidar, the mission's lead xenobotanist, hurried forward. "Lieutenant, we thought you'd been overwhelmed." Relief and excitement warred in her voice. Inara stepped up, bowing her head in respect. "I bring more than just news of your survival," she said. "I bring partnership. Inside the Yai dropship's cavernous hold, specimens of hardy ferns, engineered algae, and drought-resistant roots lay organized in hydroponic trays." Kyle gestured for the scientists to unseal additional cases. "This is our chance," he said. "With Inara's knowledge of Cravia's sacred groves and your terraforming tech, we can revive the highlands." Sparks of enthusiasm lit every face. As Dr. Vidar and her team unpacked, Inara unrolled a weathered scroll, the ancient codex of the cult of the Shrieking Ones. She traced the glyphic diagrams of waterfall ceremonies, then laid it beside Kale's tactical schematics. "They believed sacrifice summoned the rains," she murmured. "But these seeds, they will restore the water itself." Kyle's visor glowed as he overlaid Inara's annotations onto the digital map. "We'll plant along the southern ridge first, where runoff feeds the lower basin. Then we'll shepherd controlled blooms of mycelium to stabilize the soil." He looked up, meeting Inara's eyes. "Together, we'll heal this world." Outside, the canopy opened fully to the rising sun. A breeze carried the scent of new growth, and somewhere in the depths of the jungle the faint clicking of the surviving Shrieking Ones sounded. Curious, cautious. They had witnessed both the darkness of blind worship and the light of shared purpose. Now they watched, uncertain but unafraid. As the dropship's engines powered up, Inara placed a hand on Kyle's shoulder. "Thank you," she whispered. "You saved my life, and my people's future." Kale inclined his head. "You saved mine too, High Priestess." The ship lifted off, its silver form slipping into the dawn sky. Below, Cravia 4 stretched out, scarred yet hopeful, ready at last for a new era where human resolve and native